And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to the Reset Podcast. I am your host, Mr. Andre Clay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And as we see today, America's on fire. Today, we have a very good show for you, nonetheless. Today's show, I am joined by three very talented people that I'm very eager for everyone to get to know and to hear their points of views. Today's title of the show is The Traditional Killings of Black Americans. What can we do about it? This is a question that each of the guests are going to ponder on, and I hope you too, who are viewing in today, will be pondering as well. Today's show will also be a call-in show. The last maybe 15, 20 minutes of the show today, I will be opening up the phone lines so everyone can call. The number to reach us here at the Reset will be 708-414-0849. Again, that's 708-414-0849. So let's begin. Now, in light of the current killings, murders of Black folks in the last few weeks by law enforcement and race soldiers who think they're law enforcement. Um, what we have now through the protest, with the rioting and the looting, is a culmination of Black folks not receiving justice for the oppressions, for the killings, for the wrongs that have been done to our people since we were first brought here. Today, we are going to talk about these subjects, and we're going to try to hash out maybe some possible solutions. Talk about some things that maybe we can do to help remedy this in this country. There's a lot of different opinions about what those things are. Everything from seeking legal remedy. Some people have even advocated for eye for an eye type of approach. But today, we're going to talk about all of that. And I first would like to start out by introducing our guests for today. We first have Sharon Elkins from Ohio, Abeni Janae from Texas, and Curtis Smith from Texas. Um, with each of my guests, I would first like to hit you each with a question as you introduce yourselves. And that is, why does this continue to happen? And starting with Miss Sharon Elkins, if you could
Okay.
introduce
Hi.
yourself and
Okay, I'm
please
Sharon
tell us
Elkins.
how
Oh, can you hear me? Okay, I'm Sharon Elkins. My background, I've worked with children for probably about 30 years as a mental health clinician and as a teacher. And children are our future, that's important. And the question, why does it continue to happen? It continues to happen because it's legal. All throughout history, it has been legal to hunt black man from slavery on. And here it still is. Okay, when Trayvon Martin was killed, everybody put on their little black hoodies and took their picture for Facebook, but as nothing has changed. The stand your ground law is still in effect, and as a matter of fact, they have expanded it. They've expanded it so that it now covers police officers. So a police officer can basically kill you and he doesn't have to prove anything. All he has to say is he was in fear of his life. An example is Jermaine McBean. Jermaine bought an air rifle that was unloaded from a pawn shop, and the pawn shop was around the corner from his house. So he was walking home, and a police officer came behind him, and he had on headphones. And the police officer murdered him. And they planted evidence. They perjured themselves. They told lies, but they were still allowed to go free because of the expansion of the law to cover the police officers. And also, the police officers are immune from arrest, prosecution, and jury trial with this expansion of the stand your ground law. And a single judge can grant immunity. They don't even have to go to trial. And so, it's free reign on black people. And then if we go back to Minnesota, Minnesota had two killings. Everybody remembers Philandro Castile, I'm sure, and then they had Jamar Clark. And so the people there, they tried to have peaceful protests. But what happened was they put up a tent city. And what the city did was they raised their tent city with bulldozers, and some white supremacists came in to assassinate the protesters. They ended up shooting 5 men. Luckily, none of them died, but they came in to assassinate them, and they suffered no repercussions. So it's legal to kill black people, and so that's why it continues to happen.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, I would have to concur. Curtis, same question to you, my brother. Why does it continue to happen? Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and your thoughts on current events.
Well, hello. My name is Curtis Smith. I'm a 24-year Army veteran, mentor down here in El Paso, representing the Black El Paso voice. I'm out here, just doing what I need to do to make sure that we educate our young people about what's going on today to prevent some of the things that's happening and things that's going on. Try not to put yourself in those positions to whereas it has to escalate to this point where we have to watch our young people die, our young black men and women have to die uh, due to lack of education about the laws. So the question, why does it continue to happen? I would say that we don't have the laws to protect us. The laws, like Sharon was saying, the laws protect the police force. Allowing them to, hey, I fear for my life, so I have to escalate the force that I'm using, and it results in death, and they're not held accountable for their actions. So I think the laws are not there to protect us as black men. And another thing, we need to educate ourselves on what laws we can use to go back in and make sure they're held accountable for their actions. That's just, and that's why I think it continues to happen. We don't understand the law,
Right.
so but they understand the law and they know what their rights are. So therefore, like Sharon was saying, they go, you know, you got your hands in your pockets or something like that, and they thinking you about to pull out a gun instead of just, hey, following the proper protocol and saying, hey, get your hands out your pocket and explaining them why, because I fear for my life, just like you fear for yours. So we want to not put ourselves in those positions, and then the laws of the land does not protect us. You know, they get away with it. They don't have to show up in court. They get a smack on the hand. They get fired, and then when they get fired for certain things, they go back and they go and work at smaller police stations, say in a smaller county in another state, and they get
Yeah.
rehired. Now they're back in the police force, and we don't even know about it.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
those are the things that I think that uh, why it continues to happen, because you move from police precinct to the next police precinct, and they're not being followed. That track record is not being followed. They just killed a black man for whatever, or he was fired for his actions of hitting a black man, or escalation of force, and they move on to the next police station, and you never know about it because we don't know that that's happening. But if you
Absolutely.
if you dig more deeper into it, you could tell this is why it continues to happen, because they just move around, move around, move around, and they're not being held responsible. There's no laws in place to protect us.
I agree. I agree 100%, Curtis. I do. Abani, our youngest guest today. What are your thoughts on the situation? Why do you think this continues to happen? Introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are and your thoughts on today's current events.
Well, hello, my name is Abeni. I'm a musician and I'm going into my sophomore semester as a vocal performance major. And with why I think this continues to happen is just simply because of how history is. It took so long for, us as black people to be written to the US Constitution as human beings with legitimate human rights. With the Civil Voting Rights Act of 1965, I believe, in retrospect, that wasn't too long ago for us to have all of the rights that the average human being would have in America. And yet here we are, still not being treated as if we are human beings, but lesser than. And so, with how long in history it took before that to get that act put in place, I feel like it would take even longer with things now for us to have protection and, for hate crimes to be taken a lot more seriously and for police officers, committing police brutality, them being held accountable and arrested and put in jail by law. It it will take a very long time, I feel, because of how history is. It's a pattern.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you as well. It is a pattern. Unfortunately, I think this is a part. This is as American as African. That's how I feel about that. The killing of black people. It's something that is America's favorite pastime, unfortunately. Um, got a question for each one of you, and I think this time, I think I'm going to start with Curtis on this one.
Okay.
Curtis, in your opinion, brother, what is the best, or what do you believe could be the best response Black people should have towards this?
I think the best response for this is holding your councilmen and councilwomen and your politicians accountable, because those are the people. The Senate and House Representatives are the people that make the laws.
Yes, sir.
So you have to vote for that person that has your best interest at hand. That, if you want the black vote, what are you going to do for the black people? What are you going to do for us? Whether you're white or black, Democrat or Republican, what are you going to do for the black people? Here's what we want from you. We want you to establish the George Floyd Police Brutality Act, which protects, whether it be black, white, Hispanic, protect the American people from police brutality and hold those police officers accountable, not just getting fired or the police department having to pay the fees for what the police officer did. I'm saying put them in jail and they serve the right time, not just third-degree murder. You should be able to serve the right sentence. They should be in jail, and that act should have those things. But we, as Americans, should know to prevent this from happening. And the response to it is get to the voting booths. Like they say, hold your councilmen, the local representatives are the ones that sit in the seats in the Senate and the House of Representatives. So therefore, you got to get out there and know who you're voting for, know what their platform is, and know what they can do for you. It's not about what I can do for you. What can you do for us? Because you're asking me for my vote. You're putting your signs in my yard. You're shaking my hands. Right. And at the end of the day, when it's all over with, I can't even get in contact with you. See? So this is where it stops. This is where this is election year. Come June and November, you need to be just how everybody's out there protesting right now. The same group of people need to be standing, waiting in line to cast their vote for the right person to be in the seat, so our voices can be heard. And then you tell them what you want. This is what we want. And then and if it doesn't happen, then guess what? You let them know. Election year is coming up. I'll vote you out. That's I will be the leader in the community to say this person did not do what they said they were going to do, so they have to go. Let's get the right people in office and use our vote that our forefathers has died for. Yeah. Been to jail for. So we have to exercise our rights, and that's where it starts. Because I'm all for you standing up and letting your voice be heard, but let's let our voices be heard at the polls in June and November, so you can get the right people in there, so that somebody can put it on the floor and say we need to establish a George Floyd police brutality law. Absolutely. That's where I think we can move forward from where we're at right now.
I hear you. I do agree that oftentimes we tend to be retroactive instead of proactive. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what I mean? We should be holding our politicians, both federally and locally, accountable. If they don't do the job they're supposed to, vote their ass out of office. That's if they want the job, well, this is what you need to do for us. There are certain laws, and I agree, we have to utilize legislation to remedy a lot of this. Abani, I want to ask you the same question. In your opinion, what is the best response that Black people should have for resolving this issue of police and racist white supremacists killing us?
It starts with honestly a lot of education as well as voting. You know, you can't really vote on what you're not educated on, and so there needs to be a lot more implementations of people being educated on racism, police brutality, and other racial issues that Black people go through. And also applying that, then more people realize, oh, well, now I need to look at, the candidates that I'm supposed to be voting for soon and see what are their views on this? What is their stance? And do they, are they the type of person to be, front and center, denounce this and try to do something for it? Or are they just going to kind of brush this off, make a post about it, and then call it a day?
Right.
It's things like that that make a difference because, you can say something, but then you can also say and do something that will impact a lot of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like that. All right, Miss Elkin, same thing. What is the best response do you believe Black people should have in response to the police killings of Black people in this country?
Okay, the obvious is to get laws because it's ridiculous. Still at the point where there are stand your ground laws and castle laws that make it legal to murder us. And those laws, by extension, make civilians extension of the police force where they feel that they can go out and murder a Black man and then they do get protection from it because they're legally an extension of the police force with this. And, it's been that way since history, with the slave losing my words here, but it's been that way since history with the slave laws where civilians were entitled to hunt slaves. And so they need to change the laws and we need to have a voting platform with a clear objectives because you take abortion. The Republicans know that if they are against abortion, they are not getting the vote. And we don't have such a platform.
Mhm.
And so we need to have a platform where they know if you don't do X, Y, Z, you're not getting our vote. And the last thing I feel is the best response is whatever we feel the response is. Because I feel like everybody's telling us how we can protest.
Hmm.
How dare you?
Yeah, yeah.
The white man invented it. And when he did it, it was okay. And then all of a sudden, after we did it, they want to conduct studies. They want to see why we're so dysfunctional, why we're having riots. We're not dysfunctional, we're tired.
Yeah.
Because like I said, in Minnesota, they had 2 murders. They had a peaceful protest. What did they do? They bulldozed them and they tried to assassinate them. And so a lot of people are talking about why are we burning Target? People aren't so bothered about Target. They worried about what the white man think. Oh my God, how do we look to the white man? We're burning Target. So what? It does not matter what he thinks and what we look like to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
He invented the riot, he invented violence, and how dare you tell us how to protest? So my response is whatever you feel your response should be.
I hear you. I hear you. Truth be told, Sharon, this country was founded on a riot. Everyone forgets the Boston Tea Party
Oh yeah.
was a protest. It
Mhm.
was a huge protest where they just dumped the tea because they didn't want to pay taxes. So I totally I'm on board with you. I'm on board with you. I got another question. I think I'm gonna start this with Abani this time. Um, with the killings and murders of Black people being such a part of this American culture, and with it having such deep roots historically in the founding of this country, with you and people in your generation looking at what's going on, um, do you think this will ever end? And if so, how? If not, why not?
You know, last night, I was up and I was trying to sleep and I just I just broke down and cried because of seeing everything that was happening. And it was about 2, 3 in the morning, and I just walked to my mom's room and I just said, I need a hug right now. And I explained everything to her where I was just like, why does this keep happening? I shouldn't have to live in fear of being black. I why can't I just live my black life in peace? And I had asked her, I will this ever really end? Because you look through history and you would think after, the civil rights era that things would have gotten better for my generation and even the generation before that, before mine, and it hasn't. My mom, born, a couple years after the Civil Rights Act and still having to go through the same thing. My grandmother having to live through the Civil Rights era, wanting to see better for her children, and just really didn't get that. And now me and my brother having to live our lives with this fear and thinking we don't think things are really going to get better in terms of racial issues in America because what we're seeing right now with how the police are treating black people is the exact same way they treated black people in the civil rights era.
Right.
It's the same exact way that we're seeing, you know, black people be treated by the police now is the same as how the slave patrol treated slaves.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a pattern of history that we are trying so hard to break, that every single generation of black people have tried to break from slavery up until now, and we keep working towards it, but it's a matter of when is it going to happen. And honestly, it's a very bleak and grim future on whether or not it will cease to stop
Yeah.
because of how things are. Because you can have as many black people and people of color and also white people who will advocate and will try to stop the racial issues, but there's always going to be evil people. There's always going to be white supremacy. And with that, it's really difficult to determine whether or not it's going to end with my generation, the generation after me, and the generation after that.
I can understand the hopelessness, the feeling of hopelessness.
Mm.
I can definitely understand that. I'd be lying if I didn't if I said I didn't share, that same sentiment. So I'm with you on that. Quick question for you too. Your peers, do they share a lot of your sentiments as well? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of my friends who are black, they feel the same way. They're like, my family having to be through generations of this, and here we are having to fight for the same exact thing. And also, my other friends who are not black, they see it and they're like, why hasn't this changed? They look at the history, they look at the civil rights era, and they say to themselves, black people are people.
Right.
We have rights too. So why are we not being treated as such? And they're just as outraged and confused and upset as, the same black person in the same age group.
Mm.
And it's a matter of, we're all fighting for justice and for this to end, but it's also the frustration of hopelessness
Yeah.
where it's like, when is this going to stop?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I will say, seeing the protest, the recent protest, I will say I have seen more white people and people of color alongside other black people more at this time than at any other time I can recall in my recent, in my life. I was pleased to see that. Um, Although there were still people who input themselves as agitators into these protests and start rioting and and agitating things. It was refreshing to my eyes to see more people, not just us, out there protesting injustices against us. Sharon, I want to ask you the same thing. In your opinion, will this ever end? If so, how? If not, why not?
Okay, I don't know. It's hard for me to see it ending because it seems like they don't want it to end. Because we've been down this rodeo before. Every time a black man is killed, we want an arrest. And every time a black man is killed, we do not get an arrest. And so it seems to me that they're not trying to change anything, and I just don't see it. And the laws haven't changed. Um, the only way I can see it changing, the thing that you pointed out, everybody has to be on board. Everybody has to be sick and tired of this. And until everybody's sick and tired of it, it's not going to happen because the laws or anything else isn't going to change until everybody's tired. And I don't see everybody getting tired. If it doesn't affect them, it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, I see a lot of what I what I call indifference to race from a lot of folks who are not black. Like you said, if it doesn't affect them, they tend not to show as much concern. They, kind of like, well, that's your problem. You know what I mean? And they minimize the problems that we have. But Curtis, same thing, my brother. In your opinion, will this ever end? If so, how? If not, why not?
Okay, I'm gonna say this, Clay. You made up a good point that in the last days you've seen black and whites come together to stand for injustice, right?
Right.
We also had those people that are in the protest for the wrong reason. You
Yeah.
know, white supremacists trying to make everything seem like all black people are angry and we're destroying the stores and spraying the buildings and stuff like that. And that's not the case. We just want our voice to be heard. So, and when we talk about it, will it ever end? I think it could end, but we have to get back to, if you remember those old leaders in our community used to tell us the scariest thing to a white man is an educated black man.
There you
So
go.
we have to get back as we see our young black men and women that are 21, 22 becoming lawyers and judges. We have to identify those people and let them be the new generation of leaders, so that, like Sharon was saying, we can put those laws in place, because most of the time when you see these things happening, who do you see these officers standing in front of? A white judge
Yep.
who
Absolutely.
looks at it and says, well, they didn't do anything wrong.
Yep.
But if I got a black judge and a black lawyer standing in front of me, we might can change some things. So we can't be afraid of getting educated. That's where we need to start, educating our white counterparts about what's going on, and let's stand together, not just, and like Sharon says, if it doesn't apply to me, and this is what I would say to them, Sharon, okay, at the end of the day, guess what? You still black. So guess what? It could be you driving around with your nice BMW, your nice Mercedes Benz, and you going to see your cousin across town and get pulled over, but you think you got white money, that you're privileged. That's not my problem. So now when it becomes your problem, now you want me and Sharon to stand with you. But wait a minute, didn't you just tell me the other day, I don't have nothing, I don't have no problems in my community and my gated community over here because I got a little bit of money. You see what I'm saying? But
Right.
at the end of the day, you're still black. You're still in white America.
Absolutely.
The same things that's happened to you. You should feel bad about those things because there are people. We're still black people. So I think through education and teaching and mentoring the younger people, that like Abini, mentoring them and showing them, hey, this is what history is about. It's okay to be a lawyer and a judge to help us fight the wrong, and can promote the right. So I think with that we have to get back to education being the most powerful thing for us. That's what I think, and I think with that change could come. You know.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Um, I came across an article, guys, and in keeping up with the will this ever end, what possible solutions are out there, we excuse me, we explore the judicial route legislatively, voting. Um, Quite a few people I know here in Chicago, a lot of people have filed lawsuits against the Chicago Police Department. Millions of dollars have been paid out to citizens because of it. I came across this article here from the Cato Institute, and I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to read this article. And as most of you know who tune in, you know I always pick out an article to read. And I'm going to read this article, and I want to get your opinions about this, whether or not something like this can be implemented. Give me a second here as I share my screen. Hold on. Okay. Everybody see that? Okay. Here we go. Can everybody see this screen? Cato Institute right here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Cops carry liability insurance. The private sector knows how to spread risk and costs. This article right here is written by Clark Neely. It originally appeared in the New York Daily News on March 29, 2018. Earlier this month, Brooklyn resident Oliver Wiggins received a $1 million settlement after NYPD officers crashed into his car and then tried to blame him for the accident by falsely accusing him of driving while intoxicated. In 2015, the family of Eric Gardner reached a settlement for more than $5.9 million after police applied a banned chokehold while arresting him for selling loose cigarettes outside a convenience store on Staten Island. That same year, families of victims of murders committed long ago by, quote, mafia cops Luis Eppolito and Stefan Caracappa settled their cases, bringing the total paid out to more than $18 million. Now, these sums might be anomalies, but the trend is clear. The total payout for injuries caused by NYPD officers in 2017 was an unprecedented $308.2 million, up from a mere $92.4 million in 2007 and $152 million in 2012. That money didn't come out of the pockets of the officers responsible for the misconduct. The bills were covered by you, the taxpayer. That's because police departments nearly always pick up the tab for damages caused by the officers they employ. Indeed, a 2014 study found that 99.98% of all dollars received by plaintiffs in civil rights cases against police officers were paid not by the officers themselves, but by their departments. Fortunately, there is a better policy that is more fair to taxpayers that has the substantial side benefit of creating strong incentive for police to avoid hurting innocent people. Like police, doctors have a difficult and stressful job that sometimes involves making life or death decisions under conditions of uncertainty. But unlike police, doctors don't expect the rest of us to pay for their mistakes. Instead, doctors carry professional liability insurance, which pays to defend them against malpractice claims and protects them from financial ruin by paying out damage awards to successful plaintiffs. Insurance companies are exceptionally good at identifying risk. Think about car insurance. The more accidents or speeding tickets the driver has had, the higher their premiums will be. The same is true for teenagers who tend to get in more wrecks than adults and therefore represent a greater risk to insurance companies. Instead of spreading those risks among all of their policyholders, insurance companies charge risky drivers more while giving a break to their safest drivers who pay less. Now consider how that would work with police. Most misconduct is committed by a relatively small fraction of cops. Former NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton defended the vast majority, the 99% who do their work well, while saying, quote, the brutal, the corrupt, the racist, the incompetent must face consequences. Unfortunately, police departments have a hard time getting rid of their own bad apples. For example, the officers who tried to frame Wiggins are still employed by the NYPD. No charges have been filed against them. We are all too familiar with that. But insurance companies have powerful incentives to identify incentives with public safety and respect for constitutional rights. Police officers are engaged in a profession that while oh wait a minute, did I skip something? But insurance companies have powerful incentives to identify the greater risk, whether drivers, doctors, or cops, I'm sorry, and charge them accordingly. If cops had to carry insurance, the worst offenders would quickly be identified and charged higher rates if they failed to clean up their act. They would eventually become uninsurable and thus unemployable. Not going to read the rest of the article. I just wanted to go through some of this a little bit. Let me stop sharing this screen. And I wanted to get the opinion of my guest today. After hearing something like that, liability insurance for police officers, if an officer is involved in something that dealing with misconduct, they would have to pay higher premiums. Is that something that could also possibly be of a deterrent for cops to stop killing us? Curtis, let me get your opinion about that.
I think it would,
Okay.
because like you said, the end state of it is they'll end up quitting because they can't afford the premiums. And if you make it a requirement to be a police officer that they be able to have liability insurance, you'll have a better pool of police officers, knowing that, if I continue to do what I'm doing, it's going to cost me my job in the end, and this is how I provide for my family. So they're going to think twice about doing the things that's going to cost them money if it comes out of their pocket instead of the
Yeah.
police department or the city or even
Mhm.
the state. So I
Yeah.
think that'll help out if they implement it, if it's implemented. But it could be implemented, forced through by law. It could
Yes.
be a state law that
Yeah.
they put it in place and say all police officers or law enforcement officials should have liability insurance. You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sharon, what are your thoughts about that? About liability insurance for police officers?
I think it could be effective if it's a job requirement that you have to have it. Because one thing about insurance companies, so many claims, they're going to drop you and they won't even carry you as insurance. And I think it would be better record keeping because a lot of these departments tend to cover up for these bad actors.
Yes, they
You
do.
know, and because like the guy that just killed Mr. Floyd, he had 18 complaints.
Yep.
And so with the insurance company keeping track, I think it would be easier to weed out the bad apples.
I'm with you on that. Abani, what do you think about that?
I think if we have both something like liability insurance to where it's mandatory, and then also laws to where a police officer can be held legally responsible,
Mhm.
to where they could get charges pressed against them, and then if they end up somehow being found innocent, then the liability insurance, someone could sue. It it's a thing of where it affects their money. Money is kind of the core of what our entire world circles around. So if you affect somebody's money, things are going to change. And, if you stop buying from a store because of something that they've done, they're going to change something because you're affecting their income. So if you put this in place for a police officer, they might be a little bit more hesitant to abuse their power and say, okay, I can't do this because then I'll end up having to pay more. And then if I end up getting kicked out of the, insurance plan from this insurance company, then I might get blacklisted from other insurance companies with the same insurance policy.
Right, make them unemployable. Absolutely. Absolutely. I again, when I came across that article, I thought it was interesting, and this is something that I've had a discussion with someone, years ago. Um, Another thing, I was talking to someone about, and they do this in Chicago. I don't know if they do it in the different cities in Texas or in Ohio, but I know in Chicago they have set up now a committee that acts as a liaison between the community and the police department. And from what I understand, this committee is privy to police reports that the public isn't investigation findings, so on and so forth, to help to help be a voice for the public when it concerns of police misconduct. I think that that's something that would probably help as well. Oftentimes, like with Mr. Floyd, George Floyd in Minneapolis, we hear that the cop is charged with third-degree murder, but we don't know much information outside of that. Why was that? We hear that the autopsy report tells us that the young man died more from his own pre-existing conditions. Well, how did they come across that conclusion? How did they come to that conclusion? Well, a committee that's formed will be able to see that information. They would be able to see that autopsy report. That's something else. Like I said, I think that will be helpful. Um, it's not helpful, not to switch it up too much, but the media coverage of when officers commit these crimes and the aftermath. I think oftentimes the media coverage doesn't do our people any justice at all as well. They tend to sensationalize too much. And even today, the focus is no longer on the positive messages that the community leaders and activists are speaking of. Instead, it is more on the violence, the destruction, the rioting, and they tend to they sensationalize that part. um I'm going to open up the phone lines. Again, the number today is 708-414-0849. If anyone would like to give us a call and chime in and voice their opinion on what's today's show has been about, on anything that any of the guests have commented on. Do any of you have something else you want to add to this?
Oh, I do. When you were just, your statement that you just made about the negative coverage where they're focusing more so on the violence,
Mhm.
the problem I have with that is they are essentially saying that since you have been violent, now you don't deserve a
Yes, they
resolution.
are. You're right.
And
Yeah,
that,
yes,
that
they
makes
are.
no sense.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not you for you to decide that we don't deserve a resolution because we didn't protest the way that you wanted us to. But that's what the articles are implying, that because you have resorted to violence, now you don't deserve a resolution.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Absolutely.
Sharon, that's not everybody though. That if you that's why I had to wait a minute to um, gather my thoughts as well, because I was angry at first. I saw the video,
Mhm.
but it wasn't all. Everything wasn't us. Like I was telling Mr. Clay earlier. I just seen a video recently where a guy threw a brick through the
Oh,
five guys, and it was a white guy
Mhm.
covered in black, but you could see his legs and everything. And then as we took our break, a young white lady was spraying the building with negative graffiti, Starbucks in the neighborhood, and the black girl started recording her saying, "See, this is not us. We
Mhm.
don't. If you're going to do that, then we don't need you walking with us.
Right.
We don't
oh,
need
I
you
agree
because
wholeheartedly.
you're not standing for what we're standing for. We're not spraying no buildings. We walking. We having a peaceful demonstration. But you just walked over there, and they got into a little heated argument. You know." And she's like, "Well, that's a song. It doesn't matter. We're not trying to spray the building. What is that? What does that solve? We're trying to let our voices be heard.
That's right.
That's what we're doing, walking up and down these streets. We're trying to let our voices be heard.
That's
You
right.
know,
Oh, I agree
so
with that wholeheartedly. I've said from the beginning that we had these instigators.
yeah,
Okay, I was speaking more so on what the media is doing,
yeah,
trying to say that we don't deserve this. But with the instigators, they're coming in and they're doing this violence. They're going back home, and our community is being penalized for it.
Right.
yeah,
Right. That's
yeah,
exactly what I see.
So
yeah.
I agree.
Absolutely.
But I don't think the media is catching that part.
You know.
They're not catching that part. They're just showing what they think that we are doing.
Mhm.
But like you said,
I'm saying, yeah.
we have to. I think the community leaders need to stand in front of the camera and be the voice,
Yeah.
because everybody you can't be heard if you're angry, if you're that angry. you know you like you need somebody to stand there and say, this is what I want, this is what I want to to get my point across and get the local leaders. They're starting to come out now, but when it first started, where were they? Where were the local leaders then standing and saying, hey man, don't do that. Don't do that. They just burnt down a black man's store. He was mad. He was upset. He said, why are you burning my stuff down? I work hard for this, you know? But it wasn't after it was after the fact. Once the store burned down, then he came out. He was angry and he fussed at, you know, the black people saying, why did you burn my store? I'm a black owned businessman in this neighborhood. Now I got to start over, you know? And I think there was a GoFundMe gave him like $350,000 to help him rebuild it. So that's a good thing they did.
Yeah.
Because that might not have been their intent, and that group of people might not have done that. You know, so but that's the perception that the media just gave, instead of wanting to talk to the community leaders and saying, you know, how do we fix this? What are the people telling you? What are the people that's walking up and down the streets and standing out protesting? What are they telling you? What do you want the world to know right now? That's what we need. Those people to stand out and do what their titles say. You're a leader. You're a pastor. You're a black congressman in the neighborhood. Where they at? They starting to come out now and they stand together. But in the beginning, before it got to this point, the day it happened, the day after it happened, you should have been standing there and say, look, I know where this is going. We've been down this road before in LA, Chicago, you know, we've been here before. St. Louis, we've been here before. We don't want this to happen again. So let me make some phone calls and we meet at this church over here, this community center, and let's talk about this and let's come up with a plan. And just say, and call the media and say, you know, this is what we're going to do. You know, this is what the plan is. But once it got out of control, you know.
Yeah. That's what I think. Dominating coverage. That is exactly what I'm seeing. Dominating coverage is all the negativity. Is there's absolutely no coverage on any of the protesters, the positive messages, the encouragement. I'm not seeing any of that. And you know, the media, they like anything that's sensational, anything they believe is going to boost their ratings.
Right.
So you know, they and traditionally they've always, like I've always believed, gravitated towards sensationalizing and promoting the worst of us. You know, worst behaviors. You know, Abeni, you know, what are your final thoughts about what's going on with the protests, the rioting, the killings? What is your overall thoughts about this and how you feel about it?
Personally, I think with a lot of the rioting and destruction that's happening, I'm feeling a lot of it is being done on purpose by whether it be I would say, anarchists who are posing as protesters. We also are seeing white supremacists posing as protesters, so they can get the black community blamed, as well as the police officers who have been, you know, using an abuse of power and force towards peaceful protests. You know, the ones that are inciting the riots, I feel like it's being done on purpose to take away from the main movement and the main message of the point of the protest, which was that we need all four of these officers that were responsible for the death of George Floyd arrested and put in jail. And that perspective lasted for about a good day. And then the riots started happening. And now we have people going back and forth on the protesting, the riots, and it's lost focus. The core focus needs to be, we need to seek justice for this man, as well as everybody else who has been a victim of police brutality and never got that. And right now it's the argument of, well, we should be allowed to destroy everything instead of we need to seek justice for everything. And with the rioting, the looting, I don't agree with it, but I also recognize that it's not the protesters doing it. It's not the black people protesting who are doing it. It's these white supremacists posing as protesters. It's these anarchists who all they want to do is just destroy in the name of a revolution, as well as police officers who they recognize now with how the media is covering everything, or I would say lack of coverage of everything, and how other police officers like Derek Chauvin, the man who was charged and arrested first for the death of George Floyd, they're seeing these police officers can get away with it and not get penalized or punished in any way whatsoever. So they're going around with their batons and their guns with rubber bullets and just causing complete mayhem amongst these peaceful protesters. I mean, you're seeing videos of police officers who are supposed to be protecting the protesters so that way they are allowed to gather in peace to put out the message, and they're just swinging at them, pushing them down. I saw a video where, this was a residential neighborhood. It seemed like a predominantly white residential neighborhood. These people, they're just standing out on their porch trying to figure out what's going on, why the police are walking down their neighborhood in riot gear. And all of a sudden, one of the officers says, light them up, and they start shooting rubber bullets at these residents at their own houses, and they have to run inside.
Yeah,
What we're seeing right now is just complete and utter chaos on all sides, all spectrums. And the media, a lot of local media will not cover it. Personally, I can say a lot of the local media where I'm from isn't really going to cover much of it. They're just saying, oh, the protests are happening, but really nothing else.
Nothing else. Yeah. That's it's.
Oh, what you brought up about the police, one thing we have to realize is the police and the white supremacists are so enmeshed with each other. I mean, it's such a problem that the FBI started an investigation about the number of police officers that are involved in white supremacist organizations. And so that's part of the reason for them antagonizing and shooting rubber bullets at people and tear gas, to try to make the situation worse, because they're part of this scenario.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I have to
And
agree with you. I have to
the-
agree with you. I want
the
to,
main-
at this time, real quick, I want to read a few of the comments by some of the people who have chimed in. Monica says, exactly, laws need to be changed immediately. An executive order is due. Yolanda says, it continues to happen because of the culture that is fostered within law enforcement. It's incumbent upon law-abiding officers to call out those who are racist. Leadership starts at the top. I think that's a pretty good point. That thin blue line, code of silence, that needs to be broken. I think that cops know that they have a few on the force that's making the whole damn force look bad.
Yeah.
And instead of for whatever reason, out of fear or whatever, for whatever reason, they don't want to speak out or hold those bad cops accountable, and would rather take on the negativity that comes along with being a law enforcement officer. I've always found that fascinating to me, why they would do that. We have a lot of people giving heads up. Shouts out to Abeni, Yolanda, Curtis, they loving you. Angela Ship says, yes, go vote. Cedric Miller says, facts, Mr. Curtis. Monica says, Stephanie, we can only do so much. She's speaking to another person in the comment section. Like Sharon said, it's going to take everyone. Not everyone cares, so this will probably never end. But the question is, what do we do in the meantime? Annette says, go ahead, Curtis. Angela Ship, she likes what Curtis says. Stephanie agreed with Monica, but we can move forward without being but we can't move forward without being educated about the facts and knowing what we are actually standing against. And it's not just racism. We do need others to stand with us, but we need to present ourselves in ways so that we can be heard. Okay, let me see. We got some more here. Ronaldo Jenkins, that's because these mayors and governors cover it up. Too much status quo in law enforcement. Ronaldo also says it's part of a union, so it will be paid by someone. Marshall Coleman agrees liability insurance for police officers is a great idea. We do have a caller here. Give me just a second. Hello, caller. What's your name and where you're calling from? From Texas. How are you doing today? All right. Give me just a minute. Let me try to get your volume up a little bit more here. And what is on your mind today?
Anthony Merrill, South Texas.
Yes, sir. What are your thoughts?
Doing great, blessed, highly favored.
Yes, sir.
That's good about the oh,
I could barely hear you, sir. Could you speak up a little bit more?
that's great about the police, about the insurance and stuff.
Mhm.
But we have to realize that there is
I'm sorry, sir, that you have to realize what?
the underlining the underwriter. That's great about the insurance.
Okay.
I agree that there needs to be some type of policies and effect for them to hold them liability. On the other hand, I also believe that being said, you got to look at you have to realize who is in charge or who runs or owns these insurance companies. And the underwriter may have their benefit some legal jargon that gives the peace officers a way out. That's one thing. Also, President Trump did say something about what happened. However, I feel as a leader of this country, he needs to speak out the same way he did for his friend Roger Stone. And of course, we know that will never happen.
Right.
How he spoke and said Roger Stone basically was a good guy. This is that because they were buddies. But as you look, you got to look at the skin color as well.
Yeah.
And he is never going to do that for us. Mr. Curtis, yes, we do need to get judges in there. We do need to get more lawyers. Exactly, that is what we need. We still have to bombard. Like Barack Obama didn't become president overnight. Neither did Michelle become a good lawyer overnight. They had to grind. And we as a people, as people of color, brown skin, while we're in grade school, this is where this stuff needs to start getting embedded into us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I have a daughter and a son that are doing dynamic now. And I thank God because I wasn't afforded that opportunity when I was little. I didn't have that guidance or direction like they do from their mother, mainly, their main source. But, excuse me. If we get more attorneys, more lawyers, and more judges in place, yes, the tides will turn. Because you will be in a standpoint of how do you say of laying down the law per se.
Yeah.
And plus, we do need to get out there and vote. People think that their vote doesn't count. Yes, your vote does count. We've seen it here. I'm not going to call the city official's name, but we've seen it here years ago where our people did not come out and vote. And if they would have voted, this man would have been in office way before his time. But vote. And I thank y'all for putting this on, Mr. Clay, Sharon, Banny, and Curtis. Y'all
All
stay up,
good.
stay woke.
All good, my
All I
brother.
have.
Thanks for the call, man. I greatly appreciate it, my man. All right, you have a good one. All right. All righty now. All right, we did have a caller on 818 if 808. Hold on a second. This person might be. Yeah, there we go. Hello, caller. You on air with us? What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Texas, and I'm actually calling from Texas.
All right, Texas. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I've really enjoyed the conversation the last hour.
All righty.
I'm actually a friend of a Benny's.
All right.
And I got to say before I have a question, but I got to say, Benny has been such a leader in all of this. I mean, she's really kind of, I mean, I go to college with a Benny.
Okay.
And she's kind of showed us all kind of how to do it.
Very good.
You know, and I'm very grateful to have her in my life.
Very good.
Very
good.
You know,
That's
teaching me how to approach issues like this, because you know I'm not black. I consider myself a person of color, but I'm not a black.
Okay.
And I often find that a lot of people in that position, they often are unsure how to speak about how to get into the conversation. They want to help, but just not sure how. And for me in particular, my question, it's not my place to tell any black person how to protest, how to defend their right to live. Not at all.
Okay. Gotcha.
And saying that, it kind of leaves me a little conflicted about the rioting versus the protesting.
Sure.
Because on one hand, I could absolutely understand why people are rioting. This is just like, it feels like a culmination of, like, this is like the boiling over of a pot that's been like the water's been rising in this pot for so long, and finally it's starting to feel like it's starting to actually tip over.
Right.
And it was kind of inevitable. It's like, like Dr. King said, it's the language of the unheard.
That's
You're
right.
unheard for so long.
That's right.
What else can you do but shout?
Yeah.
And
That's
I totally understand that.
That's
But
right.
I look back in history and I think about Dr. King. I think about the Greensboro War. I think about the Little Rock Nine. I think about the Freedom Riders. I think about Rosa Parks. And also there's Gandhi, there's Cesar Chavez. The way they led their protest in their time. I absolutely agree with Curtis when he said earlier about leadership. Like, a lot of that had to do with just good leadership. They had good people to show them the way. But I also believe in my heart that a lot of it had to do with the fact that they stayed passively resistant. They remained defiant in their protests, but they did it in a way like they never threw the tear gas back at the police.
Okay.
And even though like Dr. King was assassinated, he still stuck through to that nonviolent approach to the very end.
Mhm.
I personally think it's because of that his dream is, more alive than ever, especially in our generation. But I know it is hard when it seems like nothing is working.
Yeah,
So
it does.
I guess I'll just throw it to you guys. Like, what happens now?
I appreciate it. Well, look, Texas, I greatly appreciate you calling in. Any of the guests want to address Texas before he gets off the phone?
Yeah, I will. Well, first of all, Texas, thank you for those very kind words. I appreciate it a lot. And with also, the thing is with how the protests happened during the civil rights era with Dr. King and other various black civil rights leaders compared to now, it's a thing of, while I would argue that a lot of black people who are protesting do not agree with the rioting, mainly because it's not us doing it. We are seeing black people, some of them, are just looting, stealing stuff from stores. And while it is wrong, it's looking at the reason of why. I mean, we talked about this before we went on live about how it's a poverty crime. I believe Mr. Curtis, you had said that, with how people are stealing, but most people, they aren't stealing if they are because in protests. It's probably because they have nothing. And while it's wrong, it's kind of separate from the rioting. And also, with going back to the fact the rioting, it's mainly not black people. Now, with people remaining peaceful and passively resistant, it's a thing of understanding that right now we have seen what black people had to go through the civil rights era with protesting. They stayed passively resistant, but they were still beaten on with batons. They had dogs set loose on them. They were sprayed down with water hoses and beaten, some of them killed or just knocked unconscious. And with black people protesting now, it's a thing of, you can't expect us to just take it. I mean, no one would want to be beaten on and not do something about it. It's like, you can think about it like bullying, where, a kid picks on you, then he starts hitting on you. The school may tell you, oh, don't hit back because it's wrong, but you have to hit back to defend yourself. And, people are going to defend themselves when they're faced with, opposition in such a violent way. Because when peaceful protesters like now, when they're met with violence from not only the rioters posing as protesters, but also these police officers abusing their power, a lot of them, while some may feel like, okay, you know what, I shouldn't do anything, I don't want to get arrested or beaten on more, a lot of them are also going to say, no, I'm not taking this. You're not about to beat on me like I'm a dog. And that's really the main thing, is just, it's not as black and white with how things are. It's a very gray area where the rioting is wrong and, you know, people shouldn't be violent. However, what are you going to do when somebody threatens you and beats on you while you are still remaining peaceful? How long are you going to take it for before you finally say enough is enough and you fight back for your own self and your own safety most of all?
Good point. Good point.
Uh, I got something, Clay. So Texas, I want to say this. Okay, this incident just didn't happen yesterday. So we're talking about the melting pot boiling over, right? Where were we as leaders? And I know I'm about to make some people upset right quick, but it is what it is. We as leaders seen this happen time and time again, like you saying in New York City, where they used the unauthorized stranglehold to kill a black man on the street, right?
Mhm.
Now, because it was live and they saw this man's breath taken from his body, you right? Now the melting pot boiled over. But what happened when this guy was shot? When the young man was shot, and the young man in Florida was killed for no apparent reason. This guy was killed. All these things, the black man being killed, right? What did we do? Like Sharon said, we put a hoodie over our head to show support.
Yeah.
So why couldn't the leaders, the black leaders, the NAACP and all these other so-called black organizations come together and we do like the Million Man March and stand in Washington D.C. and let our voice be heard on national TV once again and say, hey, this is not right. And we're here to fight for justice. The leaders with the voice, the
Right.
leaders with the voice. Now, some of them have passed away, but some of them are still here. So when were we going to come together then and say, let's have another Million Man March for justice, for
Yeah.
police brutality? You know, why are we not standing on Washington, D.C. on the front lawn talking about this is injustice? You know, there's people that have that power that can do that. But now the melting pot has boiled over, and like Abini said, now we're doing the things that you don't like to see.
Mhm.
But had the leaders stepped up to prevent this from happening a long time ago, then we wouldn't be at this point that we are right now. Like Sharon said, not my problem. It's not my problem. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't stir my wasp nest over here, because I don't have no issues over here.
Mhm.
But now it's everybody's problem, because
Mhm.
yeah, it's everybody's problem now. Now we got to force y'all to step up and be leaders, because we stood back too long for the last 5, 10 years and watched our black young men being killed. Now the pot is overboiled. So now it's time for the leadership to stand up and say, let's walk, let's take a walk to Washington, D.C. and have another Million Man March and let our voice be heard. And let those black leaders stand up in front of the White House and say, we need our voices to be heard, because this somebody needs to do about it. Like somebody was saying in the comments, the executive order being brought in and saying, okay, it's time. The time is now. It's time to stop this so that we can all live in peace.
Got you. What about you, Sharon? Anything before Texas get off the phone?
No, no, the only thing that I would like to say though,
I
you
also should say,
listen, Johnny, you guys are the largest voting bloc right now, 27%. And so a lot of the change that we need, it's up to you guys. And so I would hope that you guys would encourage your peers to vote, get out and change things. But this is the first time in history you guys have been the largest voting bloc.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's true. That's true. All right, Texas. Thanks again for calling in, my man. We'll holler at you later. Feel free, to chime in on the next show. Okay.
thank you very much.
All right, my brother. You have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye bye. I got a question real quick before everyone before we get up out of here. With all of this going on, with the killings of our people, how much responsibility does the dominant society as a whole have in this? because I'm of the opinion that the black people, we really can't stop white supremacy. Only white people can stop white supremacy. White people have to check white people about that because we've been checking them for centuries. And
Yeah.
so in my opinion, we do need not just more of them stepping up and being vocal in public about their you know dislike of this, but legislatively as well. But yeah, I would like to. I just think the white people need to stop other white people from from
Yeah.
from messing up like that. What do you guys thought about the dominant society's indifference to race, their silence oftentimes prior to this incident? Um, what do you guys what are your thoughts about that? Should they be speaking out more? Sharon, let me hear from you.
I agree, most definitely. And I think the silence just comes from maintaining the status quo. People say, I don't see color, I don't see race, I'm not prejudiced, but by the same token, you're enjoying a certain level of privilege and you like it. And upsetting that status quo takes away that level of privilege. And so until people get to the place where they truly believe that everybody is equal and everybody deserves the same opportunities, the same treatment, until they get to that place where they truly believe everybody is equal, they're not going to chime in. And I hope that they get to that place and they do.
I heard that. I heard that. What about you, Curtis?
Uh, I'm in agreement with Sharon. I think that to be on that to be in that status quo, I think we need to educate them and say, yeah, you might have this status, but this is what's really going on. You might not be racist, but you're my friend or my associate. And I need your support. I need you to tell your people to stop doing what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? I support you, so I need you to support me right now and allowing my kids and and the other generations to live and stop what's going on, because we have generations coming behind us, our kids and our kids, if you continue to say, well, I'm not a racist and I don't see color, well, I need you to tell them this is wrong, we don't need to do this, and I'm not going to associate myself with you because I know what you're doing. And then you got to show me that you're serious about what you're not a racist and you don't believe in, you don't see color. So show me by supporting what I envision, and that's peace and harmony throughout America.
There you go. There you go. Benny, what about you? What responsibility do you think the dominant society has in all of this?
Oh, they bear a lot of responsibility because a lot of the people who are white supremacists out here attacking black people end up becoming police officers and attacking black people. They're friends, they're family members of some of the same white people who they're not racist and they're against it, but they're too afraid to speak out and really say what you're doing is wrong and you really shouldn't be in a position or job occupation where you have to deal with people because you're going to abuse your power. I mean, with what we're seeing and what we've been seeing with some white people, they'll call the police on black people because a black person looked at them or told them, hey, your dog should be on a leash in this park. And literally having the white person, this white woman, Amy Cooper, I believe her name was, say, I'm going to call the police on you and say an African American is attacking and threatening me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That happens because it has gotten to a point in that person's head where they acknowledge their white privilege, they
They do.
acknowledge their white supremacy,
That's right.
and they know that they can get away with it because it seems like no one has really said otherwise to them. And you think and you look at these people and say, where were their friends who are calling them out after the fact? Where were they to say, because it's a pattern of behavior. Nobody is born racist, and nobody just becomes racist out of the blue. It's a pattern of behavior that you can see, and it's a thing of these people need to be stopped and held accountable before they do something extreme. They and with a lot of people, they're scared too because, oh, like, that's my family member, that's my uncle, that's my cousin, those are my parents. But it comes a time to where you have to have morals, and your morals need to speak for your character and what you are going to allow or not. Because, like a lot of people say, silence is acceptance, it's tolerance. And while you may not agree with it and you feel some way about it, you also have to say something. I mean, change doesn't happen by just thinking about it. You have to be proactive, and it comes at the it comes with having to have those uncomfortable conversations with certain peers, saying, "Hey, you know, your views on black people are not just wrong, they're racist and they're detrimental and they're also dangerous, because who knows how those views are going to fester over the years.
Absolutely.
And then you might end up becoming somebody who is riding down in their truck with their other racist friends and you shoot down a black man jogging."
Yep. Yep.
There is power in words. People underestimate the power that words have, because words impact action. You either can change someone's heart, or you can identify them as somebody who will never change their views, their racist views. And if they don't change, then oh, that's fine for them. But it also needs to be let known who these people are before they do something. We can't just let white supremacists keep their jobs. We can't just let white supremacists become police officers and people in office, or teachers teaching black kids, because then that puts more black people at danger than anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Well said. Well said. Well said. Well, everyone, we're gonna come to the end of the show today. Starting with Curtis, you want to let the public know where they can find you, where they can reach you, everything about you and everything, man. Hit them up, man.
Hey, I have my own brand. I'm on Facebook, Curtis Smith. I'm also the host of the Sweet 915 with my panelists Fedora, Dax, um, Anthony,
You out. Gotta check you
and
out.
Tanya. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're doing our thing out here. Uh, Member of the Black Round Table and the Black El Paso Voice. So just out here doing what we're supposed to be doing, mentoring and just hope that I can make a change out here. Like you're saying, like Sharon was saying, the Beanies group is the largest group eligible to vote. And if I can help them get to the polls, I'm going to do that. If they reach out to me and I let it be known, hey, I'm here to help you get to where you need to go. Uh, I'm also, I can help people out to vote, help out to register to vote as well. So I think they call it a marshal or something like that now. I don't know, but I have my own bag. I can register you on site to get you voted, man.
Okay.
So I'm doing my part here in the community. So
That's
it's
what's
not
up.
just standing back and talking about it. I'm trying to be about it.
Boots on the ground with it. That's what's
Yeah. That's what it is, man.
I like that. I like that.
Mhm.
All right, Sharon. What about you? Can folks find you? What's going on with you, girl?
No, they cannot find me.
Sharon is my Facebook friend, and we've been friends for a few years, and I've finally gotten a chance to know her, and I just knew I had to be cool with her because many years ago she helped me beat up a Republican, so that's my girl right there. That's my girl.
Yeah, that was fun.
That's what's up. Abani, what about you? Where can the public find you? What do you want them to know about you?
Well, you can find me on my Facebook page, my public Facebook page, Abeni Janae, as well as my Instagram and Twitter, Abeni Janae. I just do a lot of advocacy. I just try to educate people on Black racial issues. It's my entire life, what I've been doing, not necessarily even offline. I'm also a musician, so also support the arts as well.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm a musician too. I'm with you 100% on that, girl. I'm with you. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks again to my
Thanks for having us, man.
guest. Man, this was such a great show, very informative. I mean, that's what's up. I mean, that's what this platform is about. That's what it's about. Everyone, next week we'll have a new show. Be sure to log into the Reset Online, all one word, the resetonline.com. Like, click, subscribe to the channel. We're constantly trying to build this up. Eventually one day we may become syndicated, have our own website, that type of thing. But I want to keep the information coming to the public. Thanks again for tuning in, and we're going to log off, everyone. All right.
All right.
Good night.
How do you log off?
Hold on a second.
Oh.
Come on now.
And thanks again, Andre. Enjoyed.
Oh man, I appreciate everyone coming aboard. I appreciate